everybody, and welcome back to Let's Talk Parks. My name is Becky Dunlap, and I'm excited to share this episode with you. This episode is in honor of the National Women's History Month in March, and today we are flipping the script, and we actually have someone from Barry Dunn, whose name is Larissa, who is awesome. She has helped us write articles and newsletters to support the marketing efforts of this podcast and different materials for the Parks, Recreation, and Libraries practice. So Larissa is actually interviewing myself and Lakita Frazier in this episode about our professional careers in Parks and Recreation, as well as some different challenges and things that we've worked through, as well as some different trends that we're seeing in the field. So that is what we're covering today. We're excited to share this episode with you. And now let's jump into the show.
I'm curious how you both entered the field of Parks and Rec. Can you talk a little bit about what inspired you to pursue the career and just a little bit about your career journey up to this point?
I think what started me in my career is really just feeling like I wanted to, find my place in the world. And I feel fortunate and grateful that, just in college, as soon as I entered college, I was like in this unknown, and I did a series of informational interviews as a part of a class, one of my first classes that I took in college, where I had to go around and ask people or professors in the college I went to, University of Georgia, I had to go around and ask people, what do you do in this role? What challenges do professionals usually face in these different types of roles? And I had a really great professor at the time who, asked me a lot of questions like, do you like working with people? Would you prefer to be out in nature all day and not see a person? Would you like to have a leadership role? And so kind of working through those questions and exploring these different options, I was able to kind of understand that for me, what I wanted my life to look like outside of my career is like being able to mix nature and these great experiences that I've had kind of growing up in the outdoors, and being able to combine that with kind of making a difference in the community, which is really what it feels like Parks and Recreation does, is impact the community in some way, like in service to the community. And so that's kind of where I got the original inspiration for my career in Parks and Recreation. And then from there, it's kind of evolved and it's changed. And my goals at one point to kind of rise in the ranks in local government have changed and shifted a little bit. And I've just tried to be flexible with kind of how my dreams and my thoughts for my life have changed as well. So that's a little bit about what I was inspired to do. But Lakita, what about you?
Wow, I had no idea that this was something you could do in college. While I was a junior at Norfolk State University, I was majoring in social work. And that's what Norfolk State is known for, social work. I wanted to be a social worker to connect and advocate for young people that grew up like I did in a single parent home that needed assistance. So I was like, yeah, that's going to be my thing. However, I came home one summer and I needed to work. And I was fortunate enough to fall into Parks and Recreation. And I started as a part-time recreation leader. And even after I got my degree, I knew that this was what I wanted to do. I looked at recreation as being the prevention to some of the things that cause people to need additional services. So I've leaned in over the last almost 30 years, and I was in local government and thought that's where I was going to be, and had a really great opportunity to do accreditation and community building through recreation. And once I went down to South Carolina for a little while to do a special purpose district to see if I could do this outside of my hometown, I then said, okay, what's next? So went into nonprofit, felt that women needed a space in this field. I was constantly, throughout my travels and throughout my trainings, being approached by women that wanted mentors. And I felt that the only way that I could do that was to create a space so those women would have not just Lakita, but other women in the field. And so I went into Women in Parks and Recreation, and I was like, yeah, but I need to make sure that I'm able to take this last little girl through college. And I was fortunate enough, as I started Women in Parks and Recreation, my path crossed with Lisa Paradis. And the rest is history. The position came open here, and it gave me the opportunity now in consulting to do what I love to do all across the nation, and that's impact communities, one park, one playground, one program at a time.
That's great. And you both sort of alluded to your background in local government and now you're consultants. Like, do you have any thoughts about like the difference between that, like difference in impact or, how do the two types of work compare?
Definitely we don't have the direct impact of the politics. To be very honest with you, that was a major shift, I can say, for me. And just recognizing that the difference between being in corporate America and being in local government. It is why we get to do a lot of support for local government and the communities that we serve. It was a major shift for me because I'm such a team. I'm used to being surrounded like directly with people, and now I'm remote. So like finding that energy virtually and then building off of the opportunities to go out into the community keep me connected. But it's definitely a difference. But for me, it's a great difference because we get to do the work without directly being impacted by the politics.
I would agree with that. I also think that in the private sector, things move more quickly. You're able to move things forward more quickly. And I think you have maybe a little bit more space to innovate and to bring solutions forward, where in government, it feels like there's just so many different steps you have to take in order to make a change happen. And I think for me, it's a really good fit to be where we are, especially in a firm like Berry Dunn, where it's supported to bring innovations forward. And you're really just thinking about, what's going to be best for our team, what's going to be best for the clients and communities that we serve. And so, kind of with that frame of mind, that's where I thrive, where I have enough autonomy to bring solutions forward. And I still have that connection to the value of serving others and making a difference and helping others do things. And it is interesting. And I think I've had people kind of allude to this before. It's like when you have a third party come in and objectively see things, sometimes, especially when combined with data and all the engagement that we do, it adds a lot of weight to what probably their staff and leaders have been saying this whole time. And so to me, I find that really rewarding to be able to validate of like, yes, those concerns that you have are real and like we see them too. And this is how we suggest you move them forward. And a lot of that is a collaborative sharing and brainstorming. And to me, I find that process really rewarding.
So it's Women's History Month and we're celebrating women in the parks and recreation industry. Can you each talk a little bit about how, if at all, being a woman has shaped your perspective in the industry?
It has impacted me tremendously as it relates to being from Virginia. And I remember I was a director at 26 in 2003. And walking into that space and being only one of two women as department heads. And it was definitely an opportunity to learn, but also as many women that walk into spaces of leadership and fearing the unknown, I had a little imposter syndrome. So I had to really find great mentors to help me balance off how to articulate and be comfortable in that space, especially being a young professional. Now, as I've gotten older and maneuvered through these different experiences, I do still see and feel that work needs to be done. And my goal in the field as a woman and working with women in parks and recreation is to empower women to be confident, to connect them to mentors. And as well, there are men that helped me get into these spaces, but then I also feel I'm obligated to then turn around and open up the door or pour the chair out for the next woman.
Thinking about what in particular as a woman has shaped my perspective, I think the biggest thing for me has been motherhood. I'm sure there are similarities across for all working parents, but there's just additional challenges with being, I think, particularly a mom trying to, of younger children and deciding to stay in the workforce and continue your leadership journey. And to me, it feels very much like a push and pull. Like I'm very ambitious by nature. And so I'm going to move things forward and I would like to move really quickly. But I also have to pull back sometimes and realize that maybe I don't have the bandwidth that I would like to have at this stage of my life. And I'm trying to be really aware of not overcommitting to certain things that I don't have the ability to fulfill. And so I want to make sure everything that I'm committing to, I can give my full effort to and the attention that it deserves. So that's just one perspective of how being a woman has shaped me and where I am in my career currently.
Just thinking about the work that you love to do and that you're proud of, can you talk about either a project that you're particularly proud of, or even something more in general, like you're proud when you're able to do a certain thing?
It's just been a great ride. I'm closing out. I'm serving as an instructor at Director School and serving as an instructor at Revenue School. This is my last year, and as I look back on that experience in those schools, and even last night, and just the number of women and men and people that feel motivated to keep doing this work because of something that I've said or shared makes my life not in vain. So for me, it's just every opportunity I get to connect with people in our field, in our community, and share stories about how recreation is important. Yeah, I'm just proud to be a part of a movement that I truly believe is the true equalizer for our communities. Everyone deserves a part. And I'm just proud to be a part of that work.
To me, just even watching Lakita and all of the things that she's been a part of, especially the last couple of weeks with NRPA, but also, there's several people within our team that have had so much impact on the field. To me, I just feel proud to be a part of that. But I also, on an individual level, I feel like anytime that I can contribute to solving a problem, I feel some sort of career satisfaction and just feeling like, okay, it's worth it. I think for people are motivated by different things. Kita was just talking about, connection with others. And I definitely feel that. For someone who's more introverted, for me, I think it's around solving problems and making a difference in the way that I can. And so whether that's through a new way of looking at things, a new way of visualizing things, or using technology to bring things forward, those are usually the times where I feel like it's kind of my sweet spot. And like when I'm able to lean into my own skills and strengths, then I feel like, okay, I'm on the right path and I'm making a difference, even if it's really quite small in the big scheme of things. Those are the things that keep me going.
So there's a lot of change in the world, change in the country, I'm sure change in the industry, both positive and negative. Can you talk a little bit about thinking of the next decade? What are you most excited about and what are you most concerned about?
There's like so much to be concerned about right now. For me, I feel like I have to have some level of optimism. I always just try to bring it back to what I can control and what I can influence. And so how do I see things changing over the next 10 years? I think that people hopefully will continue to be reminded of how important our parks are and continue to feel more invested in the future of them. I think that especially through COVID, that was one example where, okay, the parks are shut down, but some professionals in our field were still considered essential workers. I think that provided a sense of pride for our field. I think that there will be similar messaging or similar stories that come out of this time where we realize, like, absolutely, we still need funding for these things. We still need additional resources to make it happen. And sometimes it takes those things being threatened or like the scare of something happening with them to make the community and make ourselves even more aware of how important they really are to us.
I'm very optimistic naturally. It's just a part of my DNA, I guess. I believe that regardless of what we're seeing last night, matter of fact, as I think back, our colleague Ryan Hadjinas, he gave a speech last night up here in Wheeling, Virginia, and he read an article and it talked about the concerns of downsizing, the concerns of loss of funds, the concerns of just various things that were occurring. And to close out that article, it was an article from 1935, right before the Great Depression. And so I say that to say that, unfortunately, we've been here before in spaces in our country of uncertainty. And we have been able to turn it around. And again, as I've been out here in the field and talking to parks and recreation professionals, our future is still bright. We are flexible, we are adaptable, and we truly do believe in the work that we do. As we look to the future, I do believe that we will continue to have to tell our stories better using the data that we have available and using our community residents to help push home the importance of parks and recreation. And as we lean into things like the 7 dimensions of health and wellness to help tell that story, I still believe that regardless of where we may be now, the future of parks and recreation is still bright.
So what advice would you give to young women aspiring to work in the parks and recreation field?
Lean in. You are your biggest investment. Go to your professional development. Get you a mentor. Develop your strategic plan for your professional career. Don't take no for an answer. Lean in.
I would give the advice to not doubt yourself and your capabilities. I think when that doubt creeps in, it can be very loud and it can make you question things about yourself. And especially when that is echoed in some way from other people. I think that when you decide to lean in, like Lakita is saying, and really go for it and go all in on you and your dreams and what you think is possible, that there will be a lot of challenges along the way that are given to you. And it's ultimately up to you. How do you decide to move through that? Having that perspective of how will you deal with this? How will you show up through this? How will you manage the mistakes that you will absolutely make? I've tried to remind myself that mistakes are part of the process and that how you respond to them is ultimately more important than the mistake itself. And just continue to believe in yourself and your capabilities. And ultimately, I think things will fall into place.
Final question. What's next for both of you? Are there any specific personal or professional milestones you're trying to achieve, or what do you see in your future?
I just walked away from the 2 schools. And that was the question that people were asking me, like, where are you going? I'm like, I'm not going anywhere. Just not going to be teaching. But then it's like, well, what are you going to do next? And so I'm going to continue to lean into the communities and the work that we do through Barry Dunn. I'm so excited. We are a phenomenal firm. As I've been to these last couple of schools with hundreds of people from all over the country, the number of clients that were in those spaces just made me feel good and know that the work that we're doing is great. So that's what I look forward to, leaning into that. And then also taking We Park to the next level, women in parks and recreation, being able to really, we're going to be in Norfolk in 2026, but I want to go across the country and reach as many women as possible to ensure that they have access to the support and resources that they need to be successful in our field. That's what I'm going to be doing.
For me, my professional goals right now look like giving my best each day. I don't see a lot of change in my near future because I feel like I get to do what I'm good at but also contribute to our team and to the clients we serve. And to me, that's really rewarding. I am most excited about building out dashboards as a service to our clients and figuring out how we can bring more useful technology to our clients that actually help them to get organized and communicate more effectively and get their team on the same page. So that's kind of the challenge that I am working through and excited to continue to move forward.
All right, everybody. I hope you all enjoyed this episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, let's talk parks.